Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Oh, yeah, motherfuckers. Oh, yeah, I'm late, but I'm back. This is your main man, Mr. Can You Dig It, Baton Rouge Mayor, and I'm back with a couple hot ticks of these motherfucking politics. Hit that motherfucker. Oh, look, America. Donald Trump is a fucking maniac and he need to be stopped. The son of a bitch is talking about committing war crimes and motherfucking nuclear bombs. He's fucking insane. Lock his motherfucking ass up. Put the hand.
Donald Trump is panicking at the worst moment of his catastrophic and unlawful war in Iran. Trump escalating this war to the point where some people are wondering if Trump intends to use nuclear weapons on Iran. And that is a distinct possibility after the post he just made where he threatened war crimes to obliterate the entire civilization of Iran if they refuse to negotiate with him. And Iran said, we're not going to negotiate with you ever again when you use that language. All communications, even through intermediaries, has totally been cut off after Donald Trump made a post about wiping out the Iranian people, the entire Iranian civilization, right after Donald Trump previously said, we're here to save the Iranian people. He says we're going to obliterate the civilization. Iran says there shall be no further even efforts to communicate through intermediaries, even to exchange messages, right? There's never been negotiations, according to Iran. There have been some messages that went back and forth through Pakistan and others. They said, stop talking to us after you made that post. And while Donald Trump made that post, the United States and Israel were striking in one of the largest escalations, striking Tehran, striking the Karg Island. Israel was striking train rails over there in Iran as well, the railway system rather. Let me show you what Donald Trump posted earlier this morning. He goes, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world, 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. So he says he will wipe out the civilization of Iran tonight, then says, God bless the great people of Iran. Now, even some of the biggest former sycophants of Donald Trump are calling for the 25th Amendment. Marjorie Taylor Greene says invoke the 25th Amendment. Alex Jones says invoke the 25th Amendment. It's actually a lot of people, far right-wing people, saying you got to get this guy out right now. Of course, most people in the country who are thinking straight right now think that the 25th Amendment needs to be invoked and Donald Trump needs to be removed. But what he's bragging about right there is genocide, it's war crimes, and we need to call it out. After he posted that, and while the Israeli and U.S. strikes were taking place, some of the biggest strikes yet in the war, we now learned Iran said no communication at all, even through intermediaries. The Wall Street Journal, citing 3 Iranian officials, has said Iran has cut off communications with the U.S. as Donald Trump's strike deadline approaches. He calls it Bridge Day, where he's going to blow up all the bridges and power plants and all of the civilian infrastructure.
Oh, look, America, breaking news. Donald Trump is in cognitive decline and is threatening nuclear war. Look, America, this is seriously. Somebody need to put the handcuffs him, kick him in his ass, and lock his motherfucking ass up.
Trump using a nuclear weapon is a distinct possibility right now. And Donald Trump now says, no, I'm not going to use nukes. You said you're going to end the entire civilization of Iran. How else can that be interpreted? The extremity of Trump's threats, coupled with his growing desperation to find a way out of the conflict, has increased fears that a volatile president could try to use nuclear weapons. Under the U.S. system, a U.S. president has sole authority to order a nuclear launch. To do so, he would summon a security conference call of the National Military Command Center, which would typically involve top officials such as the Defense Secretary, the Armed Forces Commander, but it would depend on who is available on such short notice. A military aide who is always close to the president would open the nuclear football, a briefcase containing nuclear strike options, as well as the codes to confirm his presidential authority. The only way to stop the order would be for those in the chain of command to deem it illegal. And they, in my opinion, it should be in everybody's opinion, have an obligation to declare this illegal. These are war crimes. Trump is threatening a Holocaust. I mean, he's saying it out loud. The Iranian embassy social media accounts are saying, don't play with fire. The Iranian embassy social media accounts say, solution, the 25th Amendment, Section 4. Who is the most hated person in the world right now? Then they write, Trump told, a whole civilization will die tonight. Then Iran writes, you and your allies will suffer an unforgettable hit from the ancient civilization of Iran. And Iran saying, self-control is over. That if the U.S. goes along with the attacks that Donald Trump is threatening, Iran says that it has its missiles positioned and it is ready to force the Middle East to descend into total darkness and shut down as well the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is in the Red Sea. Already they control the Strait of Hormuz, that they're going to tell the Houthis, shut down the Bab el-Mandeb waterway. And they say, we're going to send the Middle East into complete darkness if you attack us like this. Senior Iranian sources tell Reuters that if the United States attacks Iran's power plants, the entire region will fall into darkness, threatening to attack energy infrastructure throughout the Middle East, adding that if the situation gets out of control, it will work with the Houthis to close the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Sources state that the threats by Iran were relayed to the Trump administration yesterday through both Pakistan and Qatar. Meanwhile, the IDF announced, as I'm reading this, that they've attacked 8 bridges in Iran today. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel says, today we attacked the railways and bridges used by the Revolutionary Guard. Also, senior Israeli officials are telling their local media, Iran will burn. If the deadline is not met, Iran will burn. Meanwhile, notices are going out to anyone in the Middle East through any foreign embassy saying, shelter in place. Things are about to escalate and get very, very dark and very, very bad.
Oh, look, America, this shit is serious. Donald Trump got his hand on the fucking nuclear bomb. I'm not dying for no motherfucking MAGA or name one of the motherfucking Christian nationalist motherfucker. Fuck MAGA. Fuck Donald Trump. Put the handcuffs on him. Lock his motherfucker.
I ain't dying for nobody either. I agree with Mr. King, you dig it.
Oh, look, America, make no motherfucking mistake about it. Deliberately strikes on a civilian infrastructure is a war crime. It's a motherfucking war crime. Put the handcuffs on him. Kick him in his ass. Lock his motherfucking ass up.
So it looks like Donald Trump just blinked again after threatening to obliterate the entire Iranian civilization. Here to break it down with me is Brian Tyler Cohen, out with the new book, The Day After, How to Wield Power in a Post-Trump World. Pre-orders available now. So the pattern that we see, Brian, is that Donald Trump makes this threat of a genocide, a threat of war crimes, a threat on a massive scale. And then that rattles the markets. He gets called out for threatening war crimes. Let's be clear. He's already engaged in war crimes already. And we should speak with moral clarity when we talk about what he and Netanyahu have been doing. But he then goes to Barak Ravid, the same guy over at Axios. And this just happened moments ago. I mean, my report from 10 a.m. this morning Pacific time was Donald Trump basically seemed to be threatening nuclear annihilation. I don't know how else you interpret it. And then he says this is Barak Ravid. Progress was recorded in the last 24 hours in the negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, but reaching a ceasefire agreement by Trump's deadline at 8 p.m. still seems distant, according to a senior American official, a senior Israeli official, and 2 additional sources familiar with the details. Now, this follows Brian and Midas Mighty, senior Iranian sources saying if Trump does that, we're going to make the entire Middle East also light up in fire. We're going to shut the lights off there. We learned that there was some intermediary communications that may have been happening through Pakistan and others between Iran and Trump. The moment Trump posted that, Iran said, no more communications. We're not talking to you, even just to exchange possible messages. By the way, at your request, Trump, you're the one kind of coming to us. And now there's no communications. Then Trump posts that. And Brian, you break it down every day like we do here. You're an OG, someone who I admire, and you've been following Donald Trump's, career and just the modern day politics you covered in your book. Let's talk about this moment, then let's expand from there, Brian. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I think something that's especially interesting right now is in the immediate aftermath of Trump posting that genocidal threat, you had a bunch of even diehard Republicans come out and condemn what he was saying. Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Joe Kent, all of these people started calling for an invocation of the 25th Amendment. And I think it's become clear even to, these diehard MAGA or former MAGA Republicans, the danger that Trump poses because he feels increasingly backed into a corner. And when he feels like he doesn't have power in a certain situation, he lashes out. This is something that he's done time and time and time again. He wants to feel like he's got total control. And so if that means he's got to wield the full weight of the US military in order to do that, clearly he has no qualms about doing that. But this is all coming from a position of weakness, not strength. And so Donald Trump coming out and feeling like he has to up the ante every time is not because he's, again, negotiating from a position of strength. It's because that feels like the only thing that he can do to try and get his way. And it doesn't work every single time. And so, of course, he's going to come forward and do the whole taco thing where he eventually kind of relents because at the end of the day, if he was to keep true to his promise, I mean, God knows where we would end up at the end of this. I mean, he said he would decimate an entire civilization. What are we even doing here? This is not something that would garner the support of the rest of the world. He would lose the support of NATO. He would basically have the support of, Israel at this point in doing that. And so, of course, this is just something that he has to kind of scream about, but that, if he were to actually follow through on, I mean, you would see an invocation of the 25th Amendment 5 minutes later.
Right. I mean, when this all started, he said, which we knew was a lie, but what he said was, I'm doing this for the Iranian people. That's what this is about, right. And he's said that this is for the Iranian people, love when we bomb them. This is for them, and that goes though along with his past of, my opinion, being a predator and him say, him saying, this is for your own good. You want this. This is what you need, and so, but his post this morning, it's not directed at the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. It's not the government. He makes no distinction. He says a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again, he says. And so he's now turned this into a battle of civilizations against an Iranian civilization, which has been around for over 1,000 years with a proud history. And, as your book discusses how to wield power, to me, this is the opposite way of how to wield power, because you are now emboldening and boosting the morale and bringing solidarity within Iran amongst an unpopular regime. And You've also alienated your allies. And so to what end? It's the opposite of power.
I think, this is actually a really good example of the book focuses on how Democrats fail to wield power when they've got it, and how Republicans abuse their power when they have it. And this is the perfect example of exactly that. And I think that this could be instructive for Democrats who often feel held back by, the smallest thing, right? Any speed bump in the road, the filibuster, the parliamentarian, some, random norm or government process, like whatever it may be, that's enough for Democrats to say, oh, well, we couldn't possibly do anything here because, we've got the filibuster, we've got the parliamentarian, we've got, this law 501 subsection 3, whatever it is. It's like standard Democratic stuff. But Trump is showing that, where there's a will, he can make whatever he wants to happen. And I think that it could be instructive for Democrats to do this in a virtuous way. That doesn't mean upending the entire world order and threatening nuclear annihilation to another civilization. But it does mean recognizing that we shouldn't allow ourselves to be stopped by the smallest thing, and we can figure out what we want to achieve for the people who voted for us and stop at nothing to get it. And if that means that people can get healthcare, if that means that people could get some climate change legislation that actually has teeth and does something, if that means that we have education funding and infrastructure funding, if it means that we can expand the Supreme Court, all of those things are within our grasp. It's just a matter of having the political will to do it. And Trump is showing that when you have the political will, that power is enormous, and he's wielding it for the worst reasons possible. But he's got a compliant Republican Party, and they all have a will to move forward and consolidate and usurp this power for themselves. And I think Democrats can learn a little bit about how to wield power when they're in a position to get it. And again, you can do it in a virtuous way, and you must do it in a virtuous way. But you got to do it.
Oh, look, America. Cocaine Pete Hegseth and dumbass Donald Trump is committing war crimes. Bombing civilian infrastructure and lights and civilians is war crimes. Put the handcuffs on both of them.
Yesterday, Hegseth surprised the Pentagon and White House by firing the Army Chief General Randy George, a respected close ally of Army Secretary Dan Driscoll. Multiple sources tell us the removal has to do with Secretary Hegseth's rivalry with Dan Driscoll, who is a close ally of Vice President J.D. Vance and was considered on the short list to replace Hegseth at one point. Laura.
The Journal have pointed out an issue that we've been highlighting here across several videos on Midas is nobody knows what the strategy is. I mean, Trump is threatening to escalate, threatening to destroy Iranian infrastructure, but then simultaneously claiming victory and suggesting that the war's nearly over. It doesn't seem like a plan that's contradictory messaging in real time.
No longer, he has just threatened Iran in extraordinary graphic terms, giving the Iranian regime just over a day to either make a deal, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or face hell. If your children are watching, be warned, the president did not use polite language. Quote, Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking strait, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. We should note that destroying civilian power infrastructure is generally considered to constitute a war crime.
And even political allies to the president are saying it out loud.
War, chaos, violence, and more unsafe world comes to mind. But if we're being honest, that's also the world that we're living in now with the UN. So my friends across the street worry that with President Trump's peacemaking,
Oh, look, America. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. My sources just informed me from the Midas Touch that we might be having a deal. Nah, don't hold your horses on this son of a bitch Trump. He lied before.
Donald Trump says, here's his post. Based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Trump is saying the 10-point plan is a workable basis on which to negotiate. And that had all of those 10 features that I just read for you. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran. So Trump's saying there, he's already agreed to most of these 10 points that I just read for you. But a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America as president, and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, that's his statement. What we're also hearing about this ceasefire is China was very influential in working with Pakistan, and Russia was involved as well. And Donald Trump just tapped out. He agreed to all 10. And it's not like he said, well, it's not just that he said it was a framework to negotiate within. He said that almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to already. So let's take a look at the statement from Iran's Supreme National Security Council, calling this a crushing defeat for the U.S., saying that they've been forced to accept their 10-point plan. Iran claims U.S. has agreed to continued Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz, continued enrichment of uranium, war reparations, full reparations, and U.S. leaves its military bases in the region. Statement of the Supreme National Security Council of Iran on the 2-week ceasefire and negotiations. The enemy, in its unfair, illegal, and criminal war against the Iranian nation, has suffered an undeniable, historic, and crushing defeat. Thanks to the pure and sacred blood of the martyred leader of the Islamic Revolution, the Grand Ayatollah Khomeini, may God bless him, the measures of the supreme leader of the Islamic Revolution and Commander-in-Chief, Grand Ayatollah Mojtaba Khomeini, and the efforts and bravery of the Islamic fighters on the fronts, especially the historic, lasting, and heroic presence of your dear people on the scene from the very first days of the war, Iran has achieved a great victory and forced the criminal America to accept its 10-point plan. In this plan, America fundamentally commits to guaranteeing non-aggression, continuing Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, accepting enrichment, lifting all primary and secondary sanctions, ending all Security Council and Board of Governor resolutions, paying compensation to Iran, withdrawing U.S. combat forces from the region, and stopping the war on all fronts, including against the heroic Islamic resistance of Lebanon. We congratulate all the people of Iran on this victory and emphasize that until the details of this victory are finalized, there is still a need for the perseverance and prudence of officials and the preservation of unity and solidarity among the Iranian people. Now, in Israel, their leaders are basically saying they're shocked and horrified that Trump made this decision. Israeli sources are telling their Khan News, we were surprised by Trump's decision. We received updates in the final moments when everything seemed finalized. They say that we are committed to a ceasefire.
Oh, look, America. Ty Blanche, the acting attorney general, the motherfucker who took Pam Bundy motherfucking spot, is a criminal that's ready to be caught. Put the handcuffs on him, too. Lock his mother.
Donald Trump's top Department of Justice officials made numerous incriminating admissions during the recent CPAC. Trump's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, speaking on behalf of the DOJ at the CPAC convention in Dallas, Texas, stated that he and others in the Trump cabinet and other top officials at the DOJ fear that they will become prosecuted if a Democrat wins the presidency in 2028. And then Blanche proceeded to say a bunch of incriminating stuff that would give grounds, in my opinion, for a potential Democratic president's administration to prosecute them. I mean, he starts talking about putting ICE agents at polling stations. He starts bragging about helping the January 6th insurrectionists. He talks about targeting Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis in New York with criminal prosecutions and other threats. He talks about unlawfully terminating FBI agents who were in any way involved in investigating Donald Trump's behavior after his first term and during his first term. He talks about going after prosecutors and others who worked with special counsel Jack Smith and others at the DOJ who in any way were helpful with Jack Smith. And so he goes and says all of these things. I mean, he gives evidence to people like Mark Zaid, one of the lawyers representing FBI agents in the unlawful termination lawsuits against Blanche. He writes, "Thank you, Deputy Director Blanche, for providing yet another great court exhibit for our ongoing and more forthcoming litigation against the FBI, DOJ, and this administration for its unlawful political filings of federal employees who simply perform their job." So this is like unprecedented, bizarre stuff, even for a deputy attorney general to be speaking at such a political event like this. I mean, CPAC is the Conservative Political Action Committee. So just even the idea that a deputy AG is talking at this event at all is inappropriate. And then what he says is deeply inappropriate and incriminating. I'll give you an example. So it starts off, Todd Blanche reveals that Trump's entire cabinet is terrified of being indicted if a Democrat wins in 2028. Let's play this clip.
Everybody's afraid that the next administration, if we don't win, we're going to all be investigated and indicted. Think about that. This is not a third world country. This is America. And the existing administration is afraid that they're going to get indicted. And why are they afraid? Because that's exactly what happened during the last administration. All of President Trump's cabinet, everybody that worked in the White House, his Secret Service detail had to go to the grand jury.
Yeah, they went to a grand jury. They testified before the grand jury. If they were engaged in criminal conduct, that's what happens. Then Todd Blanche started saying, why do people have objections to us sending ICE agents to polling places? People are worried about masked agents at polling places. Here, watch what he says. Let's play it.
Like, why is there objection to sending ICE officers to polling places? Illegals can't vote.
So show me incidents, Todd Blanche, where you believe illegals have voted. Show me the cases where that's been prosecuted. Show me all this illegals voting right now. Show me where that's been going on, other than you all using it as a pretext to attack people who are here without the paperwork. But show me where this is actually. You don't have any examples. You just use this to go after migrants. I get it. I mean, there's no evidence in most things that you do anyway. So I hear you.
Oh, look, America. Remember this. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, who took Pam Bundy motherfucking place, was Donald Trump's personal lawyer. Now he's the one covering up everything else with Donald Trump. Look.
First of all, Tide Blanche, or whatever the fuck your name is. Let me tell you something. I'm not illegal. I'm very legal. I just choose not to vote because I don't want to vote. Point blank.
Oh, look, America. We cannot let Donald Trump get away with this shit. He needs to be impeached. Invoke the 25th Amendment. Kick him in his ass. Put the handcuffs on him. Lock his motherfucking ass.
Ellie Pingree of Maine. She's a member of the House Appropriations Committee and the Agriculture Committee. Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining us tonight. So first of all, when did you discover what Donald Trump said yesterday morning? Where were you? What was your reaction reading that?
I think I was waking up, getting ready for my family to come visit for an Easter dinner, reading the, social media like everyone else, and just in a deep state of shock, but also, what's the surprise? This is what this man does every day. He disgusts us, he frightens us, and he shows that he's not competent to be the president, which is what so many people are saying every day, including our former colleague, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
How many of your constituents even actually know about the 25th Amendment?
Well, they all seem to know about it now because people seem to be talking about it and tweeting about it. I mean, I hear more often about impeachment, but I think this is a moment, as you were quoting MTG, you're all complicit if you don't do something about this. So it's a way of saying, as you've talked about, the cabinet is complicit if they don't do something about this. They're around him every day. They probably know much more about his confused mental state than any of us in Congress do. You had my colleague on, Chris, who was talking about, members of the military need to speak up. Certainly Congress has to speak up and fight back. And the cabinet has to fight back. Congress has attempted a couple of versions of impeachment, were immediately, tabled by the Republicans, and it makes them complicit too if they don't speak up. For a while, people, I think, were saying, hey, this is how the president is. It's locker room talk. You'd hear Republicans say, I like his policies. I don't always like the way he behaves. But now I hear more and more people saying to me, how much of the world is he changing in a way we can never get back? They're worried about climate change. They're worried about his economic policies, destroying the social safety net, our healthcare system, our system of feeding people. And now they're worried that he's gone, and started another war when he promised he wouldn't, that he was going to be the president who ended these endless wars. And he's got the nuclear codes. And he gives these unhinged arguments every single day that change the strategy. Even if you're not a military expert, you hear one day, oh, everything's going to be fine. You hear another day, he's going to bomb them all to smithereens. And it's deeply troubling. Americans, whether you pay a lot of attention to politics or not, whether you're Republican or Democrat, they have a deep sense of what's decent, what's normal, what should be allowable in our culture, and, how a president should act. And even though we've been normalizing some of these things by the behavior continuing, I just find more and more people they're frightened, they're angry, and they want to know when it's going to end.
Oh, look, America. Donald Trump said he want to punish and destroy a whole race of people. That is called genocide. That is a war crime. Put the handcuffs on him. Lock his motherfucking...
Every single step of the way is not going to work. And so you've had Mike Johnson, you've had John Thune, you've had every single member of this Republican conference, except for Thomas Massie, come out and fail to exercise the authority and the autonomy that they have as a co-equal branch of government every step of the way, because God forbid they're on the receiving end of a mean tweet. God forbid. And so now I hope people recognize that this is unbridled Republican governance in action. They own all of this. It's not just Trump. It is the rest of this Republican Party. Trump isn't on the ballot in 2026. He's not going to be on the ballot in 2028, but the rest of these Republicans will, and they are just as responsible for what we're seeing right now as Donald Trump is, because if they had one modicum of a spine, even a fraction of a vertebrae, this wouldn't happen. But every step of the way, these people have felt that it was more convenient for them to just sacrifice every ounce of their autonomy, contract every ounce of their agency over to the executive branch. And this is the natural conclusion of exactly that, where their president, who they have emboldened, is now coming out and threatening to eliminate entire civilizations. That doesn't happen without a Republican Party that fails to step up when Donald Trump is threatening Venezuela and Cuba and Greenland and Panama and Canada. This is the natural conclusion of all of that, and it wouldn't happen without a compliant Republican Party.
Oh, look, America. Fox and Friends News, Jesse Waters, Laura Ingram need to be locked up. They are provoking Donald Trump to keep bombing Iran, trying to commit war crimes. The whole newscast need to be locked up. Put the handcuffs on him. Lock his motherfucker.
In this case, President Trump is not dealing with high-minded diplomats. These are Islamic, radical, fascist, murdering thugs who value power, violence, and death. It is a culture of death and almost nothing else. So President Trump on, yes, Easter Sunday morning spoke their language in posts and in statements, clearly presented Iran with two options. And this is where we stand. We will know in less than 24 hours. They have a chance to choose peace or they will choose obliteration. All the power is in their hands.
Oh, look, America. When a president speaks, it's policy. He's not only threatening to commit war crimes, he threatened to commit genocide. Put the handcuffs on him. Kick him in his ass. Lock his motherfucker.
Donald Trump just caved, backing down from his fake deadline, averting for now what the president described this morning as an attack on Iran that would lead to the death of a, quote, whole civilization. Moments ago, the president posted, quote, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. The suspension is contingent on Iran reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Trump says he backed down based on talks with Pakistan, which is serving as an intermediary. He added, quote, "We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate."
Oh, look, America. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Donald Trump has caved. He has called for a ceasefire because Iran has scared his scary ass. He's a bitch. Lock his motherfucking ass.